Alexander the Great Volkanovski versus Charles Dubronx Oliveira at UFC 280 is a very big possibility, as now Alexander Volkanovski is the backup fighter for the main event with Islam Makhachev and Charles Dubronx Oliveira. Personally, I got Oliveira winning in round 3 or round number 4 with a knee down the middle or a left hook counter, knocking out Islam Makhachev in the later rounds. But it is still a very close fight on two guys that have yet to lose in like the last 4 to 5 years inside of the UFC, and another guy yet to lose recently inside of the UFC or in general, Alexander the Great Volkanovski, now the backup for the main event, Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. There's a good chance we can see a cancellation. If Oliveira misses weight, if Islam Makhachev misses weight, if there's another situation of someone kind of falling over on cords or things like that, like Tony Ferguson, Khabib Nurmagomedov, whatever the case may be, Volkanovski could step in for either guy, and Oliveira could be fighting Volkanovski at UFC 280, or Islam could be fighting Alexander Volkanovski at UFC 280. But in today's video, we're not going to do Islam versus Volkanovski. We're going to do that video tomorrow, so turn on notifications if you don't want to miss that one. But Oliveira versus Volkanovski is going to be the prediction we do for today, because I do believe that there is a good chance that Oliveira Volkanovski could happen at UFC 280 for sure. But even if it does not happen at UFC 280 and nobody pulls out, I can still see this fight headlining UFC 283 or UFC 284, a Brazil main event and Australian main events. So it's a good fight. Volkanovski, Charles Oliveira would be, in my opinion, an even better fight than Islam Makhachev taking on Charles Dubronx Oliveira. But now for the predictions. Let's get my thoughts on Volkanovski's striking, his wrestling, his grappling, stacking that up to Oliveira's striking, wrestling, and grappling, and all of that good stuff. As you all know, Charles Oliveira didn't do too good back in 2015 and 2016, getting finished 3 times by second round guillotine, third round guillotine, a neck and shoulder injury, and a ground and pound TKO. Got finished a lot earlier on in his MMA career, but since all of those losses, since that last loss against Paul Felder at 2017, ended up going out there fighting a lot of other good wrestlers and grapplers like Clay Guida, Cristo Jagos, Jim Miller, Jared Gordon right there, Kevin Lee, and each and every one of these guys that are very good wrestlers and grapplers, he was able to submit every single one of them. Got the guillotine on Kevin Lee as he went in for the double leg takedown. Got the guillotine on Clay Guida when he went in on the double leg takedown. And then went on a really big win streak. 4 wins in a row. One of which was Tony Ferguson getting him the title shot at UFC 262 against Michael Chandler. Showing his striking, knocking out Michael Chandler in round number 2. So if you're going out there saying that, well, Volkanovski, man, this dude absolutely dominated Max Holloway on the feet for 5 straight rounds, destroyed Brian Ortega with ground and pound and strikes, beat Chan Sung Jung dominantly in the strike, and you may be saying, alright, for sure, Volkanovski, if he can keep this fight on the feet, he should go out there and win this fight in the striking against Charles Dubronx Oliveira. Not necessarily the case, as if you look at the height and the reach of Charles Dubronx Oliveira, 5'10" with a 74-inch reach, whereas Volkanovski, 4 inches smaller with a reach that is, 2.5 inches less long than Charles Dubronx Oliveira. Charles is also going to have the jiu-jitsu advantage and the size advantage over Alexander Volkanovski, forcing one of the good parts of Volkanovski's game that I really like, being that takedown, getting on top, getting in the guard of his opponents, defending submissions, and just ground and pounding on top, like he was able to do against Brian Ortega. Well, it's not going to be here. If he fights Charles Dubronx Oliveira, that signature ground and pound and elbows and punches on top, getting the ground and pound going like he did with Brian Ortega, well, that's going to be eliminated in a fight with Charles Oliveira. And Charles, knowing that most likely Volkanovski is not going to be wanting to go out there and test himself on the ground with the jiu-jitsu and submission game of a guy like Charles Dubronx Oliveira, it's going to force Actually, Alexander Volkanovski to be on the back foot, Charles Oliveira to be pressuring forward, coming forward with front kicks to the body, with body kicks, with high kicks and things like that, because obviously a smaller guy like Alexander Volkanovski is going to be a lot more susceptible to the head kicks and front kicks and body kicks of Charles Oliveira here, and I personally do not think we got a printer going right here, so we'll wait a little bit. Sorry about that, my printer was going off a little bit there, but like I was saying, if I can remember what I was saying, I do believe that the submission game of Charles do Bronx Oliveira is going to force Volkanovski to make this a striking fight, and like I said, with Oliveira having the height, having the reach, having the length over Alexander Volkanovski, I don't think he's going to go out there and finish Volkanovski. I haven't really seen him get hurt too many times inside of the UFC, and I do believe Volkanovski can pose some sort of a threat onto Charles Oliveira as well. But with the constant pressure of Charles Oliveira, with the sometimes takedown attempts of Charles Oliveira, because he's obviously going to be a lot more comfortable on the ground with Alexander Volkanovski. It's going to force Volkanovski to be having to worry about the takedowns and the wrestling and the grappling and the jiu-jitsu of Charles Oliveira throughout this entire 5-round fight. I don't believe Oliveira will submit Alexander Volkanovski. I don't think he's going to knock out Alexander Volkanovski. I do believe he'll mix in some takedowns, mix in some wrestling here and there, and overall, just use that height, use that reach to pressure Volkanovski forward and get out of the way of the counters. That's the main reason Volkanovski does so well, is because he's able to land those leg kick counters, those body kick counters, the left hooks, the jabs, the 1-2 counters as you are coming in. But if you're as tall and as lengthy as Charles Oliveira and you have the ability to land the takedown, it's going to be a lot harder for Volkanovski to land those counters when he's worried about getting taken down at the same time. So if Oliveira versus Alexander Volkanovski were to happen at UFC 280, maybe it happens on a later card or something like that, I would lean Charles do Bronx Oliveira to keep the fight on the feet, mix in a few takedowns, and actually outstrike Alexander Volkanovski on the feet. I don't think he's a pound-for-pound better striker than Alexander Volkanovski. I believe if they were the exact same size right now, they were both 145 pounds, and it was a 5-round striking match. Maybe Oliveira was a little bit smaller in terms of the height and in terms of the reach. Probably go Alexander Volkanovski to outstrike Charles Oliveira, but because of the wrestling and the grappling and the jiu-jitsus of Charles Oliveira, to mix that in opposed to the striking as well, I do believe that height, reach, jiu-jitsu, wrestling combination will force Oliveira to land some good front kicks, some body kicks, and leg kicks at range, and pressure forward on Volkanovski, winning 3 out of 5 rounds in a banger 5-round fight in the lightweight division. What do y'all think? Do you have Oliveira do Bronx winning this one, or the pound-for-pound greatest in the world, Alexander Volkanovski? Put your thoughts down below in the comment section. Make sure to smash that like button. Like Volkanovski, smash Brian Ortega with ground and pound. Turn on those notifications after you subscribe and comment your predictions. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.